Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Turrfield Ebonies going up against our reigning champions, the Cinnabar Blazes. And as they have a look at their opening hands, let's have a look at this tale of the tape between these two sides, who are both currently sitting outside of our top 5 after not having the start to the season they were hoping. The Ebonies are looking to bounce back into victory road, having never taken a win in the postseason, whereas the Cinnabar Blazes want to return there to defend their championship title. So with that said, let us know in the comments below who you think is going to win this matchup. Will it be the grass decks? Will it be the fire decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And it will be that Weller Volcano deck of the Cinnabar Blazes with their Fletchling going into the active spot. It's the Execute from the Ruins of Abundance deck of the Turrfield Ebonies going into their active spot, both with only one basic Pokemon. It is the Fletchinder being pulled for the Cinnabar Blazes here in our game 1, where all 3 games count towards our leaderboard. So no matter what happens in these first 2 games, you can still get points that count towards the leaderboard. In game 3 here, it is the Boon Suite being pulled for the Turrfield Ebonies, and they do get that Leaf Cape onto the Execute to boost its health by an extra 30, getting that first energy onto it here. Now Execute does require 2 energy. As the Oricorio is pulled for the Cinnabar Blazes, they immediately get that onto the bench, wanting to ensure they can have at least one bench Pokemon. But it's the Fletchling coming, the Fletchinder coming online, who only requires 1 energy for this steady fire breathing, and it does do 30 damage, but they've also got that type advantage over the Turrfield Ebonies. They played the Guzma that does cause that Leaf Cape to be discarded, bringing down Execute's health back to 60. But as we're saying, they have that type advantage, and with that weakness coming into play, all fire type moves are boosted by 20. So this steady fire breathing is going to do 50 damage to Execute, leaving it with only 10 health remaining. The Ebonies are going to pull the rare candy, and they can use this because they do have the Serena in hand. They've got the Steenie, so they can evolve this Boon Suite if they so choose. Just a matter of which one they want to evolve it into. And that Serena has a 3-kick combo where it gets to flip 3 coins, and for every heads it does 50 damage, and it only costs 1 energy. They do use the rare candy to get the Serena online. They're going for the rolling tackle though with the Execute just to get some damage onto the Fletchinder here as it comes back over to the Cinnabar Blazers, who pull the Talonflame. They're immediately going to evolve the Fletchinder. This Fire Wing, 70 damage, only requires 1 more energy to be placed onto the Fletchinder. That's exactly what they're doing here, and with this Fire Wing, it's going to wipe Execute off the board. 110 damage. The Cinnabar Blazers taking the first point here in game 1. As we said, this 3-game series where for each win in a game you get 2 points toward our leaderboard, and all points taken and damage done also count here in this round 2 matchup. It is going to be the leftovers restoring 10 health for the Talonflame as the second Execute is pulled for the Ebonies. They get that onto the bench, and here comes the 3-kick combo. They need 2 heads. They get 1. They get 2. They get all 3. Talonflame is wiped off the board. This is massive for the Ebonies because that Talonflame would have been a huge threat, and the Ebonies have taken it out into the discard pile, getting their first point back as the Oricorio is moved into the active spot. It does require 2 energy for this Kindle, but it's got 70 health as the Turtonator is pulled for the Cinnabar Blazes. And if you're wondering why they have a full art card, that is one of the prizes of becoming our champion of the PokeType League TCG, having won Season A2. That is what the Cinnabar Blazers get throughout Season A3, and they get an energy onto the Oricorio. With the Kiawe though, they're able to generate 2 energy for the Turtonator. This causes them to end their turn, but the Turtonator requires 3 energy, so it's already set up good to go as the second Boon Suite is pulled for the Ebony, so it's moved onto the bench. But it's Execute getting its first energy as another 3-kick combo. They need at least 2 again. They get the tails. They get 2 tails, they get 1 head, so it's 50 damage here onto the Oricorio. Not quite what they needed. They wanted it off the board to keep that pressure on this Weller Volcano deck as the second Kiawe is pulled for the Cinnabar Blazers here. And Turtonator, with that Fire Spin, does 90 damage. It has to discard energy. When Oricorio goes on the offensive with this Kindle, it has to discard energy, as does the opposing Pokemon. So 60 damage onto the Serena thanks to that weakness, but they both lose an energy each. It is the Mallow, though, that is pulled for the Ebonies. They can use this to restore Serena back to full health. When doing so, it has to discard all energy on it, but it has none on it currently, and it only requires 1 to go on the offensive, so they must play that before they put an energy onto the Serena, getting it back to full strength as that Steenie is also online. And it just needs 1 heads from this 3-kick combo, and it gets it straight away. It gets to 100 damage here onto Oricorio, wiping it off the board, and the Ebonies only need one more point to try and avenge their clean sweep defeat that they suffered at the hands of the Cinnabar Blazes in last season's Victory Road. The Ebonies, unfortunately taken out in straight series, are looking to redeem that effort here in this contest. It is the Lily being pulled for the Cinnabar Blazes. Now the Blazes could play the Kiawe, but it would end their turn, so what they've done is they've added an energy to the Turtonator and 90 damage. It does have to discard one of the energy, but 110 onto the Tsareena here. Fortunately for the Ebonies, they were able to get back to full strength, and they pulled the Alolan Exeggutor as well. It does require 3 energy, but with that Tropical Hammer, it can do 150 damage. It can take the Turtonator out with one hit. As the Ebonies going for the coin flip, they could get 3 heads, but they get only 1 head, so 50 damage onto the Turtonator. This is great for the Blazers. They're trying to bring it back here. They still need 2 more points. As the Ebonies are having a look at their Steenie here, the Professor's Research being played by the Cinnabar Blazers, they get their second Talonflame, they get their second Oricorio. They don't have a Fletchling in hand, but they can continue with these Fire Spins. Turtonator has 70 health remaining. That Fire Spin wipes Tsareena off the board, and the next point will win our game 1. And the Ebonies are going to move that Alolan Exeggutor into the active spot. It's got 150 health as the Tsareena is pulled for the Turrfield Ebonies as well. With that kick down, it can do 50 damage to the opposing Pokemon. So not enough to take out Turtonator, but with the Alolan Exeggutor, this Tropical Hammer, it is a coin flip. If they flip tails, this move will do nothing. Moment of truth, they go for the coin flip, and it's a tails. This is not what the Ebonies needed. That coin flip could have determined, well, would have determined, sorry, our game 1. The Fletchling has been pulled though for the Cinnabar Blazes. They are immediately going to get that onto the bench, as with this Turtonator, they're continuing on the offensive. Another Fire Spin, another 110 damage onto the Turrfield Ebonies. Now the Ebonies can go for this coin flip again if they so choose, but with that said as well, it is Exeggutor that requires 4 energy to retreat, and that is exactly what they're going to do. They won't be able to go on the offensive on this turn. A very interesting play here from the Ebonies. Were they not willing to give up that risk of taking the victory? It was a 50-50 chance, and they haven't taken it. That could cost them here, as this will allow Turtonator to continue on the offensive. They've also put the Poison Barb onto Turtonator as well, hoping to poison Tsareena if it comes on the offensive. They do get the Fletchinder online. This could be a massive mistake by the Ebonies not being willing to take that risk. Were they not feeling confident in that coin flip? I mean, the odds of them getting heads are about 50-50, really, as 110 damage onto the Tsareena. The Ebonies pulling their second Steenie, but it is no good to them now. They are going to play the Lily onto the Tsareena. Now, this is only going to get its health back to 90. That's not enough to outlast this Turtonator, and they cannot do enough damage, and I think it's finally sinking in for the Ebonies, the massive missed opportunity they may have just taken. Unless they were just hoping to maximize their damage instead of running the risk of not getting the damage done. But with that said, this kickdown still isn't enough to offset the 110 damage that Turtonator is going to do. Talonflame ends up going back into the deck of the Cinnabar Blazes, as that poisoning is now going to afflict Tsareena here. It does have 10 health restored from the leftovers, but there's that poisoning doing 10 damage back, and the Blazers are free to take game 1 over the Ruins of Abundance deck. This Walla Volcano and this Fire Spin is going to wipe Tsareena off the board, and the Cinnabar Blazers take game 1. And as we have our first table reset, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you never miss any of the action in the PokeType League TCG. But here we go into our game 2. It will be the Ebonies going first, and this time they're going to be using their Lush Jungle deck. They've got the Morlul and the Wimpod in hand, and they've already got the Shiinotic and the Golisopod, so they've got both of their evolutions. They will be going up against that Crimson Invasion deck of the Cinnabar Blazes. It's the Morlul in the active spot, the Wimpod on the bench. We can see the Growlithe and the Torkoal in hand for the Cinnabar Blazes, and they're going with the Torkoal in the active spot. It does require 2 energy, but it does 70 damage, and again, that weakness doesn't come into play, whereas Growlithe requires 2 energy, and it only does 30 damage. Arcanine, however, does require 3 energy from this deck. But here we go, our game 2, as the Ebonies are trying to not have a clean sweep defeat from the Cinnabar Blazes again after what happened, like we said, in Victory Road. There's not much the Ebonies can do after pulling the Golisopod, so the Cinnabar Blazes, it comes back over, sorry, to the Cinnabar Blazes, who pull their Repel. They're playing the Pokeball. They get the Blacephalon out of their deck. Again, another full art card on this side, and they immediately play the Blacephalon onto the bench, as they've got that Beast Wall item in hand that can only be used when the opposing side have not taken any points. They get a first energy onto the Torkoal and end their turn. It comes back over to the Ebonies, who pull the Fermentus, and they think of getting the Shiinotic online, who does have 100 health, so it can outlast that Flamethrower from Torkoal. They also get the Golisopod online as well, but they are opting to set up the Golisopod instead of the Shiinotic, who has that first impression where it can do additional damage. It comes back over to the Blazes. They pull their Poison Barb here, and they immediately get that onto the Torkoal. They don't want the Ebonies to have any freedom when going on the offensive, as they're having a look at that Repel. It can only switch out a basic Pokemon with a different basic Pokemon, so they can't use that here. As they continue to look at it, I'm sure they're wishing that they could use it here. They want to be able to target that Golisopod, as the Flamethrower, 90 damage onto the Shiinotic. Huge damage there from the Torkoal. As the Blazers seem in control early on, it is the Turrfield Ebonies and this Lush Jungle deck pulling their own Pokeball. They are going to get a basic Pokemon, and it's their second Wimpod, which is fantastic because they do have that second Golisopod in hand. They've also got the leftovers. Now, this won't be much good on the Shiinotic here, as they get a second of third energy onto the Golisopod. It comes back over to the Cinnabar Blazes, who pull their second Growlithe here, but they're continuing to get these energies onto the Torkoal, as it has to discard them every time it uses the Flamethrower. Another 90 damage, and Shiinotic is taken into the discard pile as the Blazers take the first point here in game 2. And here it is, Golisopod being moved into the active spot. The Mellow is pulled as well for the Turrfield Ebonies. That would have been fantastic to be able to use on Shiinotic as the Golisopod with this first impression. And it is only going to do 60 damage as well. It's not able to capitalize on its effect because it needed to be moved into the active spot during that turn, whereas it was moved into it at the start, so it could not capitalize here. But it is the Professor's Research pulled by the Blazers that they are going to play. They get the XP, they get the Arcanine. Now, they can't generate much energy for it here because they are just concerned with continuing on the offensive with the Torkoal, so it will be 70 more damage. But again, that weakness to the Fire typing coming into play is huge. 90 damage onto Golisopod, who's also contending with the poisoning, so it's got 10 health remaining. It's not going to be able to do much here at the end of this turn, but they are going to play the leftovers very intelligently. They're going to offset that poisoning, so it will restore the 10 health from the leftovers before the poisoning takes effect. They're starting to set up their second Golisopod, but again, it will only be able to do 60 damage unless they go for the retreat into moving it into that active spot. And there it is, taking that Torkoal off the board. Torkoal in the discard pile, and the Turrfield Ebonies have taken their first point here in game 2. Now, that poisoning is going to afflict Golisopod as the Cinnabar Blazes finish their next turn, who are running out of time. They need to decide Arcanine or Blacephalon. It is Blacephalon moved into the active spot. Now, both Arcanine and Blacephalon do require 3 energy. They're not going to be able to do much on this turn here because they don't have any energy yet, but they have pulled the Penny. They can use a supporter card that is in the deck, still in the deck, so it wouldn't be the Mellow of the Turrfield Ebonies, and they've got the Guzma here, so it is going to allow the Cinnabar Blazes to play the Guzma. It gets the leftovers off the Golisopod, but it's not much of a difference because that poisoning was still going to take it out at the end of this turn. They are going to get a first energy here onto the Blacephalon. Now, keeping in mind, they could have used the Lusamine just now to also generate 2 energy onto an Ultra Beast, which is exactly what Blacephalon is. They can still use that in the next turn because what it does is it takes 2 energy from the discard pile and moves them onto one of their Ultra Beast. I was going to say they're Beast Balls, but it is an Ultra Beast, not a Beast Ball. That's what you catch them in. It is the Poison Barb being pulled for the Turrfield Ebonies. They get this onto their active Golisopod. Now they want to make the Blazers reluctant to go on the offensive. They get a second energy here onto Golisopod as well, but there's not much they can do because the ability of this Blacephalon to do 130 damage. Golisopod only has 120 health. They play the Lusamine, they get the 2 energy onto it, and with this Beat Punk, it is going to wipe Golisopod off the board. It is 70 recoil damage onto the Blacephalon, and it does have to deal with that poison, but it doesn't have to deal with it for long because they've just taken the 3rd point, and this Crimson Invasion deck have taken game 2. And as we start our game 3, the Turrfield Ebonies are just trying to avoid another clean sweep loss to the Cinnabar Blazes here. And it is going to be the Ebonies once again going first, this time with their Leaf Charge deck up against the Heel Turn deck of the Cinnabar Blazes. It is the Pheromosa in the active spot for the Ebonies. They've got the Litten and they've got the Salazzle in hand for the Blazers. and the Salandit, but they've got the Salazzle and the Torracat in hand. It is going to be the Salandit going into the active spot, and it is that Litten on the bench. But here we go, our game 3. The Cinnabar Blazes trying to take a clean sweep. The Turrfield Ebonies just trying to take 2 points here to take the victory. Now it is the Beast Wall being pulled for the Turrfield Ebonies. Now they have got a Pokeball in hand, so they can guarantee that they will get a basic Pokemon out of their deck. And they need that because they do not want to have an empty bench and potentially lose their active Pokemon. They get the Rowlet and they've got the Dartrix in hand. Now we can see they've got a Lusamine in their own hand. They play the Beast Wall, so this will reduce the damage that Pheromosa takes in the coming turn by 20, which is fantastic because it is weak to the fire types. It will be taking 50 damage, but it brings it down as the Blazers do get that Poison Barb onto the Salandit here. They get the 1 energy required with this Ember. It will do 30 damage to the Pheromosa, but it does have to discard the energy that is on it. I have to wonder, would the Blazers have been better off keeping that energy on it and evolving it into the Salazzle, because the Salazzle they have in hand will poison and burn the opposing Pokemon in the same turn. That could be a costly error here by the Cinnabar Blazers very early on in this matchup, as the Ebonies get the Dartrix online. They get the 1 required energy onto the Pheromosa, so it can go with these Jump Blues. It does 20 damage to the opposing Pokemon, but it also does 20 damage to a benched Pokemon, and there's only that Litten on the opposing bench. And they do get that Leaf Cape as well, that Pokemon tool onto the Pheromosa. Now they choose not to use the Beastite, which can be put onto an Ultra Beast to boost the damage it does by 10, but only if that they have taken 10, taken a point as well, as neither side have taken a point in this matchup. It's the second Salandit being pulled for the Blazers, and it is Salandit with 40 health remaining. It was able to leave Pheromosa with that poison status condition. They get the Torracat online. They can get the Salazzle online as well. Or will they continue to go with these boosted Embers onto the opposing Pokemon? And that is exactly what the Blazers do. 50 damage onto the Pheromosa, but thanks to that poisoning, Pheromosa is wiped out into the discard pile. And this heel turn deck are trying to run through the Leaf Charge deck with just the Salandit. They're not even trying to use the Salazzle at this point. It is, however, the Decidueye being pulled for the Turrfield Ebonies. The Dartrix gets its first energy. They can get the Decidueye online. That Dartrix, with this skill dive, can target any Pokemon on the opposing side though, and with that, so can Decidueye. It can do 70 damage to any of the opposing Pokemon. None of them have more than 60 health. As that skill dive onto the Torracat, and as I said, none of them have more than 60 health. Well, none of them now have more than 50 health, because it brings Torracat down to only 40 health remaining. They get an energy onto the Salandit, and with this Ember onto the Dartrix, it brings it down to only 30 health remaining, but they have to discard another energy. The second Dartrix being pulled for the Ebonies, and here it is, the Decidueye with this sniping arrow that 70 damage can target any Pokemon, which means they can avoid the Poison Barb of Salandit here. And it's Torracat that they've targeted, taking their first point here in game 3. The Ebonies are trying to bring it back. They just want to take at least 1 win before the end of this matchup. The leftovers being pulled for the Cinnabar Blazes. They cannot put that Pokemon tool onto Salandit because it's already got that Poison Barb on it, but they can get this Salazzle onto the benched Salandit here, and that is exactly what they're doing, because it can outlast the sniping arrows. As with the Salandit in the active spot, they're continuing on the offensive, trying to make the Ebonies have to make a choice that they want to deal with the Decidueye being poisoned here. And it is the Pheromosa being pulled for the Ebonies. They immediately get that onto the bench. As we said, they've got that Beastite in hand. They can get that onto the Pheromosa if they so choose. They do have their options. They're hovering that energy, and they do decide to put it onto the Pheromosa, but that sniping arrow continues from the Decidueye and this Leaf Charge deck. And this time they're going to target the Salandit. They could have targeted the Salazzle, but they didn't want to deal with taking more damage from the Salandit, and they've taken their second point. 1 more point and the Turrfield Ebonies will take game 3. And it is the Salazzle being moved into the active spot for the Cinnabar Blazes. There's that poisoning afflicting Decidueye. It has 20 health remaining. The Heatran has been pulled for the Cinnabar Blazes, returning from Season A2 to help the Cinnabar Blazes fill out their 3 decks as they get a first energy onto the Salazzle for this heated poison. That poisoning afflicting Decidueye. It has 10 health remaining. It has 1 turn left. They could choose to retreat it if so, and bring that Pheromosa into the active spot. They have pulled the Rowlet. They could move that onto the bench as well since they've got the Dartrix, but there's the Beast type being put onto Pheromosa. They get a third energy onto the Decidueye. And they're opting to go with the retreat. They do not want to drop another point to the Cinnabar Blazes. This could be a very intelligent play in the long run because those points on the leaderboard do add up. You get your series points, you get your points for the win, but these are the point counters that also contribute to the differentials on the leaderboard. That 20 damage as well as the additional damage thanks to the Beast type doing 40 damage to the Salazzle. It is the Professor's research from the Cinnabar Blazes that allows them to get their Incineroar and their second Torracat. They get the leftovers onto the Salazzle plus a second energy, and with this heated poison, it will do 50 damage to the Pheromosa, but again, it's going to leave it with the poisoning, it's going to leave it with the burn. The poisoning does 10 damage, the burn does 20. There's 10 health being restored for the Salazzle, and the poisoning afflicts first, which means they're going to maximize their damage onto the Pheromosa here. And it will be the next point that wins this matchup. The Decidueye moved back into the active spot. It has 10 health remaining, but it can do 70 damage. They've just pulled the Poison Bar, but it only requires 1 more energy, and Salazzle only has 60 health remaining. And with this sniping arrow, Decidueye targets the Salazzle here, and the Leaf Charge deck are able to take a single victory for the Turrfield Ebonies. They avoid the clean sweep, and this could be good for the Ebonies, maybe give them a bit of a confidence boost because they will need that as they currently sit in 7th place next round. They are going up against the Pastoral Hydras, whereas the Blazers move all the way up to 2nd, and they've got the bye next round, but after that they're going up against the Olivine Raiders. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you thought the best card was, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.